before we go deep into the program this morning, let me remind you that nothing is impossible for God. Work, pursue your dream, and don't let anybody's opinion for you become your reality. So I welcome you to another exciting edition of From the Newspaper this morning, streaming live from the premises of the DAC's Hotel, Akpete, IBADAN. Good morning to you all, wherever you're listening to MFM Radio and TV. This is MFM Radio and TV, where we set the agenda and project the truth. And don't forget, you can watch us live on Facebook at MFM Radio and TV. And as you're watching us, please don't forget to like, comment, and share. And as usual, you know this program is in form of 3 segments every morning. The first segment is the weather forecast report of 3 newspapers to you every morning: the Punch newspaper, the Vanguard newspaper, and the Guardian newspaper. Where the last segment on the show is the details to the headlines. My name is Shaqeeroh Akinyemi.
Jungle.
So moving on to the first segment on the show this morning, which is the weather forecast report. And the first city I'll bring you on this morning is the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. At 10 a.m. in Abuja this morning, it's cloudy with 28 degrees Celsius. At 11 a.m. it's intermittent cloud with 29 degrees Celsius. At 12 p.m. it's partly sunny with 31 degrees Celsius. At 1 p.m. is mostly sunny with 32 degrees Celsius. At 2 p.m. is mostly sunny with 33 degrees Celsius. At 3 p.m. is mostly sunny with 34 degrees Celsius. At 4 p.m. is partly sunny with 34 degrees Celsius. At 5 p.m. is partly sunny with 33 degrees Celsius. At 6 p.m. is mostly sunny with 32 degrees Celsius. At 7 p.m. is mostly clear with 31 degrees Celsius. At 8 p.m. is mostly clear with 29 degrees Celsius. At 9 p.m. is clear with 28 degrees Celsius. At 10 p.m. is clear with 27 degrees Celsius. And up until 11 p.m. is clear with 27 degrees Celsius. So moving on to the commercial city of Lagos. At 10 a.m. in Lagos this morning, it's cloudy with 30 degrees Celsius. At 11 a.m. it's cloudy with 31 degrees Celsius. At 12 p.m. it's cloudy with 32 degrees Celsius. At 1 p.m. it's thunderstorm with 32 degrees Celsius. At 2 p.m. it's thunderstorm with 33 degrees Celsius. At 3 p.m. it's intermittent cloud with 33 degrees Celsius. At 4 p.m. it's intermittent cloud with 32 degrees Celsius. At 5 p.m. it's intermittent cloud with 31 degrees Celsius. At 6 p.m. it's intermittent cloud with 30 degrees Celsius. At 7 p.m. it's mostly clear with 30 degrees Celsius. At 8 p.m. it's mostly cloudy with 29 degrees Celsius. At 9 p.m. it's cloudy with 29 degrees Celsius. At 10 p.m. it's cloudy with 29 degrees Celsius. About 11 p.m. it's mostly cloudy with 29 degrees Celsius. So moving on to the last city on the first segment this morning, which is the vibrant city of Ibadan, where we are transmitting live from. At 10 a.m. in Ibadan this morning, it's cloudy with 29 degrees Celsius. At 11 a.m. it's mostly cloudy with 30 degrees Celsius. At 12 p.m. it's intermittent cloud with 32 degrees Celsius. At 1 p.m. it's partly sunny with 33 degrees Celsius. At 2 p.m. it's partly sunny with 33 degrees Celsius. At 3 p.m. it's intermittent cloud with 34 degrees Celsius. At 4 p.m. intermittent cloud with 33 degrees Celsius. At 5 p.m. intermittent cloud with 32 degrees Celsius. At 6 p.m. is thunderstorm with 30 degrees Celsius. At 7 p.m. is mostly cloudy with 29 degrees Celsius. At 8 p.m. is mostly cloudy with 28 degrees Celsius. At 9 p.m. is intermittent cloud with 26 degrees Celsius. At 10 p.m. is intermittent cloud with 26 degrees Celsius. At 11 p.m. is intermittent cloud with 25 degrees Celsius.
Audio Jungle.
So moving on to the second segment on the show, which is the headlines make round of Nigerian newspaper. And the first newspaper I'm bringing on this morning is the Punch newspaper. And the latest story on the Punch newspaper this morning says, AGF moves to defense Tinubu as PDP governors mobilize 11 sons. And page 8 out the details to that story. And there is one rider to the story that says, Fadbemi drafts Supreme Court response. PDP berates president. IBADAN Tompolo hit at Fubara's return, and page 8 out the analysis to that story.
Audio Jungle.
And above the line of Punch newspaper this morning says, 774 local governments challenge federal government, state in court Tuesday, and page 9 has the details to that story.
Audio Jungle.
Another story on the Punch newspaper says, Abdul Karim's anti-Tinubu song gains streams as Soyinka slams NBC, and page 14 has the details to that story. Another story says, Presidency dismisses US court order on Tinubu article differs, and page 8 has analysis to that story. The last story on the Punch newspaper this morning says, Federal government rule out flood, preparedness campaign. To the Vanguard newspaper. Another story on the Vanguard newspaper says, nothing new in FBI. They record on drug case, state presidency, and page 8 out the details to that story.
Audio Jungle.
To the story that says, six candidates indict president, and page 8 has the details to that story.
Audio Jungle.
Vanguard newspaper says, economic instability, job, loses forex inflow loan, says Naxima, and page 4 has the details to that story. And there are 3 riders to that story. The first rider says, federal government needs to return adversity to opportunity. Another rider says, adopt variable, affordable, homegrown democracy. And the last rider says, MPA should forget 15% fee hike. Says Nan, and page 19 has the details to that story. Amid the crisis, poor Igbo's youth enlistment in military service, and page 51 has the details to that story. Another says Tinubu moves to hot APC's member defection from CPC bloc. Says sources, on page 9 has the details to that story.
Audio Jungle. Still on Vanguard newspaper, another story says Soyinka slam MBC for banning Idris Abdulkarim's song, and page 8 has the details to that story. Audio Jungle. Palm Sunday can condemns Plateau killings, demand justice, and page 50 has the details to that story. Story on the Vanguard newspaper this morning says PDP governors meet over Fubara as Tompolos assures of its return, and page 12 has the details to that story. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Alright, so moving on to the third newspaper, which is the Guardian newspaper. And the latest story on the Guardian newspaper this morning says Labour laments High Court of leaving braces of vengeance renegotiation, and page 6 has the details to that story. Another story on the Guardian newspaper this morning says Undume raises alarm over renewed Boko Haram attack in Borno, seizures of LGAs, and page 6 has the details to that story.
Nothing new to reveal, presidency dismisses U.S. court on Tinubu's drug case, and page 3 had analysis to that story. (2027) PDP admits gang up to unseat Tinubu as Udozima dismisses coalition, and page 3 has the details to that story.
Audio Jungle.
Another story on the Guardian newspaper says Urua condemns systematic demanting of democratic structure in Rivers, and page 6 has the details to that story.
Audio Jungle.
Still on Guardian newspaper, another story says UN Chief Sanusi orders to remember Chibok guests at 2 in London, and page 5 has the details to that story. Labour leader alleged federal government exploitation petition, ILO, UN, and page 5 has the details to that story. Code of Conduct Bureau to check corruption with EC declaration system, and page 7 has the details to that story. At last story on the Guardian newspaper this morning says Jega fought varsity over rush of honorary award to a worthy character, and page 6 has the details to that story. And moving on to the last newspaper on the second segment this morning, which is the Nigerian Tribune. And the last story on Nigerian Tribune this morning says how Supreme Court rulings landed PDP, Labour Party in further crisis, at page 22 has the details to that story. There are 3 riders to that story. The first rider says Abure remain in charge. Labour Party spokesman as Awakba Hindi delay claims. Another story says PDP in limbo as member awaits decision of Anyawu Ude Okoye. And the last rider says other internal mechanism received by word, says Olongwadwa, and page 22 has analysis to that story.
Audio Jungle.
Nigerian Tribune says Secretary Brown on registered digital assets exchange online forest platform, and page 5 has the details to that story. Air passengers volume drop aimed biting economy, and page 6 has the analysis to that story. Nigerian Tribune says, so you can slam Tinubu government. Once Idris Abdulkarim songs on band, and page 3 has the analysis to that story. UBA unveil upgraded POS terminal, revamped money hub, and page 5 has the details to that story. on Nigerian Tribune says Nigeria attracted over 5 billion naira in new gas-related investment in 12 months. And there's one reader to the story that says President Nigeria Gas Association, and page 6 has the details to that story. Story on the Nigerian Tribune says Presidency says no new revelation as U.S. court order FBI DEA to release his record on Tinubu's investigation, and page 3 has the details to that story. Alright, so we have come to the end of the second segment of the show this morning. Before we divert into the last segment, let's go on a break. Stay tuned, I'll be right back.
nípa iléeṣẹ́ àdúgbò iléeṣẹ́ olùfọkàntán iléeṣẹ́ Star Mike Multimedia Concept tó ń jẹ fẹ́fẹ́ tó gbà wò níbi ká máa ṣe àwọn ohun ẹ̀rọ lọ́kànjọ̀kan bíi àwọn ohun amúnúléwu ìbòdò ń wò bíi fresh pillow customized wardrobe mọ́ọ̀gì tó ṣe é kó tí ìgbóná láti fi jórí ẹ̀ náà rẹ́yìn towel customized cap t-shirt pen àti àwọn iṣẹ́ printing mìíràn lọ́lọ́kanjọ̀kan. iléeṣẹ́ Star Mike Multimedia Concept ló wà ní ojú ọjà Mọ́kọ́lá ní ìlú Ìbàdàn. ẹ lè wá sórí 08071486599 08131931183 tàbí ẹ kàn sí wọn lójú òpó ìkànnì ìbánidọ́rẹ̀ẹ́ ti Facebook ọ̀pádùn Samuel lórí Instagram @ostarmike lójú òpó X @ostarmike. Star Mike Multimedia Concept àgbèrò rẹ̀ ṣíṣe dọwọ́ tiwa.
ọ̀rẹ́ mi gbà mí gbogbo àwọn ọ̀lẹ́kùn ilé mi ló ti dógùn kódà gbogbo àwọn táìsì tí ń bẹ nílé mi kò lówó lójúmọ́.
ibo ló ti rà á.
ṣé bí lọ́dọ̀ àwọn kan tí ń tàlẹ́ bí ọ̀nà.
o ti sọ owó gbowó ṣé o ti gbọ́n pa ilé ìtajà Starlands Homes Wear Enterprise ó kù nígbàrọ̀ gùdù eléyìí tó dojúkọ ilé ìfowópamọ́ Keystone Bank agbègbè Àbáyọ̀mí Ìwòrò nílẹ̀ Ìbàdàn. báwo lẹ ṣe fẹ́ sí àwọn ilẹ̀kùn ayẹta àwọn táìsì tí ó gbohun iyì àti ẹwà bá ilé àwọn àgbá omi lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan moving sheet eléyìí tí ó gbé àwòrán ilé jáde àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ gbogbo rẹ̀ ló wà lójú kan náà lọ́dọ̀ Starlands Homes Wear Enterprise fún gbogbo kọ́lékọ́lé àti àgbàlékọ́ gbogbo àwọn ohun èlò ilé eléyìí tí ó sọ ní èrè di àwòdámi ẹnu ọ̀dọ̀ Starlands Homes Wear Enterprise ní orí àkàsí ẹ pè sórí ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 0708-760-5119 lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí 0708-760-5119 Starlands Homes Wear Enterprise mo tún lówó àwọn èròjà ilé tó ní òun wò lójú.
So welcome back to the show. It's still from your newspaper. Don't forget you can watch us live on Facebook at MFM Radio and TV, and as you're watching us, please don't forget to like, comment and share. We are now in the last segment on the show this morning, which is the details to the headlines. And the first story I'm bringing on this morning says, Presidency dismisses U.S. court order on Tinubu Atiku divorce. The presidency on Sunday dismissed any notion of fresh revelation emerging from the United States Court, order directing the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Drug Enforcement Administration to release files on President Bola Tinubu's past investigation. It insisted that the record, which dates back to the drug trafficking investigation, Chicago from the early 1990s, have been publicly available for the other 3 decades and pose no fresh concern for the president. The following the ruling by Judge Barry Owell, the U.S. District Court in the Washington, D.C., who instructed both agencies to conduct search and produce non-exempt documents in response to freedom of information, as requested by American legal researcher Aaron Greenspan. Obtained Sunday showed that the FBI and NDE must comply with the Greenspan FOIA submission related to the Chicago-based negotiating ring from the early 1990s involving Tinubu and 3 others, Leandri Esri. Reacting to development, the President's Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, said, "There is nothing new to be revealed. The report by the agents, most of the FBI and the DEA, has been in public space for more than 30 years. The report did not indict the Nigerian leader." Onanuga confirmed that the government's lawyer and the reviewing the U.S. judge ruling, arguing that the document had no fresh dimension to Tinubu's part. The order issued by the Judge Orwell on April 8 mandated the FBI and DEA to conduct search and the process by non-expert documents in response to freedom of information, as requested by American legal researcher Aaron Greenspan. Greenspan, who run the transparency platform Plain Sight, submitted 12 FOIA requested between 2022 and 2023. It's filling out information on Chicago-based drug trafficking of potential privacy concern were outweighed by the public interest and provided no information to establish that considerable privacy interest exists by keeping secrets the fact that Tinubu was a subject of criminal investigation. While the FBI and DEA were ordered to comply with the FOIA request, the court appealed the CIA's decision to withhold record after Greenspan acknowledged the agency had validated round under the existing law. According to FBI and DEA must search for a process non-expert record while responsible for the FOIA request direct to this agency. However, the special advisor to the president on policy communication, Daniel Bola, while speaking on Sunday edition on channel television Political Today, stated that the information being cited will be different from that was already in the public domain. According to him, the buzz around the news was mainly because of the way the media and opposition interpreted it. He said nothing is new, so let the weight of 12 content of me become there is actually nothing that are asking for which may not be released. It means it may intended to create unnecessary conversation as if there is an issue on the table. Meanwhile, former President Atiku Abubakar, who ran against Tinubu in 2023 presidential polls, has welcomed the American court order to argue that if there is disclosed record provide president eligibility to hold Tinubu should step aside for the sake of Nigeria's global image. The former VP stated, "What is meant is that the efforts of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar will not be in vain, and what will be uncovered is Excellency's attempt to ascertain exactly the transfer of the circumstances surrounding the forfeiture of $1,000 allegedly linked to the drug trafficking and the issue concerning the Chicago State Certificate." And details of the news is on Punch newspaper. Says federal government roll out flood preparedness campaign in 30 high-risk states. The federal government will begin a nationwide flood awareness campaign in May 2025 to educate the sensitized Nigeria on the risk and safety measures related to flooding. This was disclosed by the Deputy Director of the Department of Flood, Erosion Control and Coastal Management at the Federal Ministry of Environment, Mr. Kunle Awojemila, in the interview with the correspondent on Sunday. The federal government has revealed that the Federal Capital Territory are expected to experience significant flooding between April and November this year. During the official presentation of the 2025 Annual Flood Outlook by the Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency in Abuja, the Ministry of the Water Resources and Sanitation Professor Joseph Ustev listed the states at a risk flooding as Abia, Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Benue, Borno, Cross River, Delta, Ebonyi, Edo, Gombe, Imo, and Jigawa. Others include Kebbi, Kogi, Kwara, Lagos, Nasarawa, Niger, Ogun, Ondo, Osun, Oyo, Rivers, Sokoto, Taraba, Yobe, Zamfara, and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The ministry emphasized that flooding remains one of the Nigeria's most devastating natural disasters, warning that climate change continues to increase both in the frequency and the severity of the flood events. He added that coastal and the riverine states, such as Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, Lagos, Ogun, River, and Ondo, are likely to experience flooding due to the rising sea level in the tidal surges, with the expected impact of fishing activities widespread, habitats, and river transport system. Meanwhile, data from the National Emergency Management Agency revealed that in 2024, flooding disaster affected 217 local government areas across 34 states. A total of 1,373,799 people were impacted, with 7,773 displaced and 321 facilities recorded. Additionally, 2,854 individuals sustained various degrees of injuries, and thousands of hectares of cultivated farmland were either submerged or completely destroyed by floodwater. On Sunday, the Director General of NEMA, Mrs. Zubaida Umar, emphasized that the urgency needed to enhance emergency preparedness at the grassroots level, especially in anticipation of the rainy season and potential flood disaster. Speaking to the NEMA's Ekiti Operation Officer, Dr. Koforo Olasoleye, at the closing event in Edo, Ekiti State on Saturday, the DG said, sensitizing the residents at the grassroots level is under to exposure hazard, safety measure, and how to respond to emergency, especially with the onset of the rain, would go on a long way to mitigating the adverse impacts of flood disaster. She explained that the NEMA GRAPE program was a community-focused, high-impact sensitization program designed to bring emergency education directly to the people at most risk. During the campaign, NEMA officials visited high-risk areas such as Shaqeeroh Ekiti and Ido Ekiti, where they engaged community leaders and stakeholders to foster collaboration in disseminating life-saving information. As part of outreach, residents in flooding-prone zone of Shaqeeroh and Ido Osi local government area were advised to evacuation techniques and one temporarily relocated to higher ground once rising water level are observed. The agency reiterated its call for the continuous community involvement, stressing that the preparedness and early response to the key of reducing devastating impact of natural disaster. And the details of the news is on Punch newspaper. Supremacy tussle between Alaafin Oni, says Oludmo. The vice chairman of the Oyo State Council of Obas and Oludmo of Ile Odmo Oba Olushola Lao has dismissed speculation of the supremacy tussle between the newly installed Alaafin of Oyo, Oba Abimbola Owade, and the Oni of Ife, Oba Enitan Ogunwusi. Speaking to journalists on Sunday, after the closed-door meeting at the Alaafin Palace in Oyo, Oba Alao emphasized that both monarchy hold distinct reserved position in Yoruba traditional hierarchy and that there is no rival between them. Oba Awade was crowned on the 46th Alaafin of Oyo on April 5, following a long selection process that failed the throne left vacant since the passing of Oba Lamidi Adeyemi in 2022. Oba Alao described his visit as a gesture of homage and solidarity, hailing the new Alaafin as a leader of wisdom, intellect, and deep cultural understanding. During the visit, both monarchy reported discussed that issues related to the progress of Oyo State, the state's traditional council, and the broader Yoruba unity. Olugbo further noted that Idris Abdulkarim anti-Tinubu song gains stream as Soyinka slams NBC. Veteran Nigeria rapper Idris Abdulkarim protest track Tell Your Papa has recorded a remarkable milestone despite being banned by the National Broadcasting Commission. The song, which criticized President Bola Tinubu administration, has gathered the attention of several Nigerians and has been making a wave on social media. According to statistics on YouTube, Tell Your Papa has 22,754 views on YouTube with 1,200 likes, and the video number has been since skyrocketed to the 82,138 views and 2,600 likes on YouTube too, indicating a surge of popularity hailed by Jaga Jaga in 2004, accused the current administration of being insensitive and whimsical. Abdulkarim took the Instagram to express his view on the ban, stating it's obvious that Nigeria's truth and constructive criticism is always deemed by a brick crime by the government. The ban was also faulted by the Performing Musicians Association of Nigeria, which predicted that the ban would be counterproductive and make people want to stream it more. Ban, describing it as a return to the culture of censorship and threat to the right of free expression. In a statement issued by the New York University, Abu Dubai, on Sunday, Soyinka criticized the action and the wider implications, saying it echoed past attempts to soften the artist and socio-political commentary in Nigeria. It expressed the irony in suggesting that the ban did not go far enough, stating it is not only an alleged offense to record should be banned, the musician himself should be proscribed, next payment, and whatever musician association of the Abdulkarim is a member should go to under the hammer. The literary icon warned such as censorship was not only counterproductive but also dangerous to democratic development. Soyinka called the relevant regulatory body to describe it described as relevant regulatory, and the details of the news is on Punch newspaper.
Audio Jungle.